I cannot even imagine how he felt. He knew with absolute certainty that old Europe was going to disappear and it was going up in flames. I was here with the London Sinfonietta. That was the first time I ever came here. We played 2 concerts at the New York Festival. But I think everybody has the same reaction. You see the skyline for the first time and you can't really believe it. Because apart from being very impressive and beautiful, it's also iconic. So you know, okay, this is something else. It is not Europe. It's shocking. And I don't think I ever quite got used to it as a Finnish person. This kind of amount of people per square meter is so staggering. We are in Midtown New York, one of the busiest spots of New York traffic-wise, and most certainly was that already when Bartók lived here. And this is the building where he lived, 3rd floor, suffering from the noise, which was pretty much like it is today, I'm sure. So I can only imagine how he felt, unable to sleep for the traffic, far away from the nature, very difficult to see, open sky. Noise is awful in New York, and I think that's something that unites people. You know, the richest billionaire can still hear the police and the ambulances going by, no matter how luxuriously and high up they live. Well, I haven't been able to write one note in New York ever, and I've been coming to this place for years and years, and it's an environment that somehow doesn't let you be. And I think for a profession such as composing, where you essentially create something out of silence, it's very hard. I think we have to remember that he was not a tourist when he came to New York. He was in exile, and he knew there was no return. And of course that is the state of mind that is very hard for us to imagine even. And I think that in Bartók's case, he left Europe for good, and he left some of his musical material for good as well. And I think that's the experience when these people came to America. It was such a melting pot, such a strange culture which was very familiar and completely alien at the same time. And what happens in your brain? You start relating to it in some way, and it becomes this kind of more global, less local kind of approach. And this happened to Stravinsky as well. Stravinsky was the hippest guy of his time, and his face is on the cover of the Time magazine. Greatest living composer is here, that sort of thing. Bartók comes, nobody knows who he is. He barely knows himself. So much of him and his identity as a composer came from that material, from the Balkans, and then he goes and works on the very same material at the Columbia University. This must have been a very strange feeling.
So what he was doing here for his stipend is actually transcribing these recordings that were owned by Harvard, collected by Perry of Yugoslavian folk music. Now, this group of materials has to do with the appointment that he was given here at Columbia. Mm-hmm. The stipend was renewed the following year.
And at this point he's living in the Bronx.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. 3243 Cambridge Avenue, Bronx, New York.
Right. So did this mean that he was technically part of the faculty? Or that was a special position?
I think it was an adjunct kind of a position.
Which wouldn't mean in that case, that he would have access to health insurance.
Exactly.
Right. And that
Exactly.
must have been the problem, of course.
As he then is diagnosed with leukemia and needs a lot of treatment that it doesn't seem that he actually received until probably it was too late.
It's sobering to look at correspondence like this where the greatest of creative minds are struggling with every day, making the ends meet. It's kind of it puts things into perspective.
Yes, it's very, very moving too.
And also, if you think of the psychology of this, he's sitting here in New York and he's going through his old notes and recordings from pre-First World War.
Yes.
And now Europe is up in flames. Hungary has been suffering really badly. Lots of things he believed in and that were dear to him are gone forever. He knows he will not go back to Europe. He knows that he's going to stay here. He knows he's going to die here. And what goes on in his mind when he transcribes and organizes all this material, his only link to the world that was once his own.
Concerto for Orchestra was composed during those last couple of years.
Right.
The viola concerto as well, I believe.
And the third piano concerto,
And the third
most
piano,
likely, yeah.
third piano concerto, left unfinished, and finished by Tibor Surly, whose papers we also have.
Right. It's also interesting. I never thought about the fact that he had to choose at the end of his life which piece to complete, the piano concerto or the viola concerto, and he chose to try to complete the third piano concerto. And this explains it. There's a theory. Selly has a theory saying that although the viola concerto would have been a commission, and had he completed it, he would have received $1,000, which would have been very useful at that point because he was very, very ill. But he decided to concentrate on the piano concerto instead. And Serly's theory is that he was trying to create a vehicle for his young pianist wife to kind of start a career as a soloist after his death, which of course was not a commercially viable thought because Bartók was not known as a composer in this country at all. And even a very successful piano concerto by his standards at the time would not have been a sort of career vehicle for Dita. But there's some beautiful kind of naive idealism in that thought that rather than go for the easy money, he would kind of invest in the future of his wife, and it's beautiful.
Now here he's talking about the third piano concerto. Oh, this was something that I thought. It says it was odd too that he wrote the word, how would you say that, vég, in Hungarian, meaning the end, at the last part of the piano concerto sketches, for he had never before used this word at the end of any other of his compositions. But he must have known he was dying.
So the word was referring to himself rather than the end of the piece?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now that's quite a thought.